And just like that, Dan, we're into it, my man. I am Chris. I'm the Longbox Punk. This is a brand new live streaming episode of the Longbox Punk where I talk to indie comic creators about their comics, their process, and all of the good stuff in between. Super positive focused, which is why I'm proud to say that I'm part of the Nerd Initiative Bullpen for Creators, which is your favorite fan spot for every fandom and all things positive. Nerdinitiative.com is how you find us. Those are all my advertisements. Get those out of the way early, Dan. Dan Stevens is here with me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Monday evening. I appreciate your time.
Hey, Chris, I really appreciate you having me on tonight. And to all you guys out there, guys, check him out. If I know I've got some of my fans out there, this is the first time catching your stream. And hey, hopefully I'll add a few more people to watch you, right?
Absolutely. That's the name of the game, right? So tell me, Dan, I want to know, like, I'm curious to hear about your backstory, your origin story, as it were. I know a little bit of what I've seen and what I was able to dig up on social media, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So let's hear your origin story. How'd you get into comics?
Cool. So I actually have always been a nerd. When I was a kid, like once a week, I'd get home, I'd go to like piano lesson and come home to the comic book store and able to grab one of my Spider-Man comics. And so like I just fell in love with comics. We got into beyond all the Spider-Man and all things Marvel. Marvel mostly. I do like some Image and Dark Horse and a few of those titles. DC just never was one of my favorites. But Image came out with like a Wildstorm trading card game, and really got involved with that. A bunch of nerds. We made it. We all got to make one card that we could throw into our decks.
Oh, cool.
One of the characters that is in my comic, his name is the Golem. He's not going to be in issue 1, but he is going to be one of the main characters, issues 2 through whenever. So then I was in college. I went to North Central University in Minneapolis, and while I was there, I took a fiction writing class.
Okay.
Now, everybody else was writing like Anne of Green Gables and Bridgerton style.
Yeah.
And it was boring.
Yeah.
It was so awful. So I started creating some stories, and out of that, this story popped up, and it stuck with me. And I was like, that would be such a good comic book. I don't know where I'd go with it, but that'd be such a good comic. And then I started pursuing it, and I don't draw well. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But I found some people who could, but then I realized they couldn't. You get what you pay for, and I was asking for free because I was a poor college kid.
Yep.
So I put this down. I was like, nope. But then the rest of the story started popping up, and I was like, man, I really need to do something with this. So I reached out to a guy named Glenn Herdling. Glenn worked for Marvel back in the 90s.
Okay.
He put out a comic book called The Illuminator. And it took me some digging, but I found him, and he responded. So as I spoke to him, he gave me some great advice. There wasn't anything he could currently do.
Sure.
And again, I came to another roadblock. So a couple of years later, this is probably about 5-6 years ago, it came back up. I was like, man, there's more stories. This thing is just growing. What am I going to do? Reached out to a guy, Comics 365, down in Mexico City, and normally I'd have his name right at the tip of my tongue, but I'm kind of at a loss at the moment.
It's funny how the big red button does that.
Yeah, but he went through all my stuff and he's like, man, I love this story. I really want to, see this come to print. And he gave me an avenue to kind of get these away.
Hmm.
And I said, that's not my audience, and I'm really not in a place that I could do that. So this is as far as I can get. Well, started doing my research. Came across an independent comic book company called StarCross Comics. You can check them out, starcrosscomics.com. Some of the big titles we have: Tin Soldier, Alpha Red, Black Blossom, Pillow Man and Blanket Boy, Killer of Kings, Biblical Proportions. There's a ton of incredible titles.
Yeah.
Joe Spicer is the head of StarCross, and I pitched him my story, and he said, "That sucks."
Jeez.
And I'm like, well, that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
So we had a conversation, and he looked at what I was doing, and he's like, you know what? This is actually pretty intense. All my characters, I've done a ton of research from my contacts worldwide. Um, I was able to reach out to some people from India and Israel, the Congo, Arizona, which isn't on the other side of the world, but one of my characters is a Navajo skinwalker.
Oh, cool.
So, what does an authentic Navajo skinwalker? What does that mean? What does it look like? What's his name? Where's his background? My military guy, I have a guy that was Green Forces commander, and so I reached out my military buddies. I'm like, what does that look like? What is this title? How would this play out? So Joe looked at this. He's like, Dan, you've actually done a ton of research. Most writers, they kind of have an idea. They let somebody else kind of figure that out. I really want to see this play out.
Yeah.
So Joe Spicer had contacted, the rest of his team, said, hey, Dan needs some help getting this started. He's got a lot of questions. He's never done comics before, but here's a story. So they're like, yes, we're behind this. How can we help? And after 3 years of finding the right artists, because again, I don't draw, finding the right reward systems and having enough stuff, I have finally was able to launch that just yesterday.
That's awesome. Let me drop that. So Stained Glass #1 is live right now on Kickstarter. You've got some really cool rewards lined up that are more than just, hey, here's a different cover. Here's this. You've got a colored glass cover, which as I was perusing the campaign page, I was like, what does that even mean? So like I seeing that, because I've seen metal covers before. I've seen like the lenticular. If you hold it one way, they're one picture. You hold it another way, it's another picture. So like almost holographic. But I don't think I've ever seen what's listed as a colored glass cover. What does that even entail?
Okay, so this is our holofoil cover, and it's the person that's going to be printing this has a particular holofoil that really just over the stained glass just makes it look absolutely gorgeous. A lot of my artwork, again, I don't do, but I found a particular style with my artist. Every cover is a different stained glass.
Oh, cool.
So, I want to work on what the color is going to look like, the effects, and it just gets better and better. One of the artists I started with is named Luke Stone, and he is kind of a legend in independent comics. And Luke had worked on some of the most incredible new techniques for the very last page of my comic. And I don't know if you have that. but it is the very last page of my comic where I'm going to give it away because you can see it on my page. The main character in that comic, an archangel, his wings are ripped off. All of his soldiers are dead and dying, and the angels are bleeding out light and gold flakes, and you just that color, that effect.
Yeah.
Luke and his colorist Patrick Gamma, man, they just did an incredible job on that page.
That's awesome. So how did you end up like finding the artist that you've got? Is it the same artist that you're going to be working with? I know the book is still in production, hence part of the Kickstarter to get the artist paid. But is that all like the same artist, or have you worked with a couple that have like pieced some of the pages together?
Yeah, so great question, because I have using a network. That's one thing that being with StarCross has gave me access to. Federico Soya, he did the cover and the Virgin cover, which is the stained glass with Adam and Eve and the serpent on there. So he did both of those. Luke Stone and Patrick Gamma did 3 pages of my first comic and 3 pages of my second comic. Luke, he, again, being a legend, he is incredibly busy. He's also doing Fund My Comic, which is a great way for independent guys to be able to get started and keep a lot of the money that they're doing. But he just is so busy with Fund My Comic and his own projects. I went to Joe. I'm like, hey, I need somebody who can be on this. And we came across an incredible artist named M.K. Odinson. MK, his work, I mean, it speaks for itself. You can see some of what he's posted.
Yeah.
A lot of StarCross is using his work. He gets it out so fast, and it's just so quality. He's one of my absolute favorite artists, so I'm glad that we were able to snag him for the project.
That's cool. Yeah, I love, as looking through, and I'm totally cheating here, looking through the campaign page, some of the like sample pages that you've got on here are just like unlettered, but they're still so captivating. Like the artwork pops, the colors, especially on the second full page that's on here, like the bright technicolors that are there, just really like, and they all 3 pages that you featured look different. Like they all have very different feels. And so I'm real curious. Like, I think that's super smart to do, because as somebody that's looking at the Kickstarter, it's like, well, what do I expect from this book? There's a whole lot of everything in this book. And like, I think that's really smart to show, it's not just this, it's not just this, like it's a little bit of all of these different elements. Was that intentional?
So the first 2 pages on there are 2 pages from the first. The third is a page from my second. But yes, the very first comic, it's more of an issue of 0. Without this comic, there would be no series. It introduces the first protagonist. The full name is Sarev Ha'adan, which in Hebrew means the sword of the Lord. The second, or the third page there is a clip from my second one, which introduces the main protagonist, a young guy named Josh. And you see a few of the characters from the team. You see the Skinwalker, which when I talk to my artist, I have a character artist, Gilbert Monsanto. And I said, Gilbert, I need a werewolf zombified. That's what I want with this Skinwalker.
Yeah.
The little guy there with the sharp claws, that's my golem. That's my take on a golem. It's a bit different than the traditional golem, a giant clay monster. And then the bottom panels, that's Durga. She's my Hindu girl. forearms, a tail. They treat her like a goddess. But as you see, and if you're looking at that last page, the bottom left panel, she has a hole in her throat where she got shot.
Mm.
The next scene, it's gone, and that's what this kid Josh. It's one of the things he does.
That's cool.
So
you want me to show that? I can totally show that.
Can you? Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do this. Share. All right, and then we just add it. But
there we go. So like my kids have asked me, Dad, when can we read your comic book? I'm like, maybe when you're a little older. It's kind of gritty. If somebody has a sword, they're not going to knock someone over the head. Or if they, go into the whole Ninja Turtle route, if they got a pair of sais, they're not going to, I don't know, again, knock them out. They're going to stab them and dismember them. And it is kind of gritty. It deals with some pretty unique topics when second issue is introduced. You've got characters from around the world, different religions, cryptids of each religion. Again, like the Durga Hindu goddess or the Skinwalker, the Golem, a genie from the Middle East. And then, of course, you have the two main protagonists. You have the boy and you have an angel. That's they're supposed to be colorful. It's supposed to be a lot of light and dark references. That's one thing that's kind of setting the artwork apart. When you get this, it's not going to have the traditional white background. It's going to have those black backgrounds.
That's cool. Yeah, I love using even that gutter space to help reinforce like the story that you're telling too. I mean, really, like all three of these pages are just like, I just think these look so good. They just look so good. So you've been working on this story and you've been developing this story for 20 years.
Yes.
So
yes.
When you got to the point where you were meeting with StarCross and, like, hey, I'm ready to take this and like talk to an artist and figure out like how I make this thing happen. Like, was there a part of you that was hesitant to like share this thing that you've been researching and cultivating and working on and thinking of, like, was there a part of you that was like, send the email?
So when I finally got to StarCross, that's when I really decided I want to be all in. The stories just kept coming, and at this point, it was like, if I don't start sharing these stories somewhere, somehow, it's going to drive me nuts. I'm literally going to go mad with these ideas, and even still, as I've got the first 13 issues mapped out, I got their stories completed. They're written through issue 4, but going through issue 13, there's still things that pop up, and I'm like, oh my goodness! Like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and have this entire scene going on, this interaction between the characters, and I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see that being on paper, and I don't write like the typical comic guy. Like, I write as a story. I'm writing chapters, and each chapter is an issue.
Yeah.
So by the time I'm done with this, I plan on having a novelette, not just like a illustrated. I really want it to be a black and white novelette that people can go out there. It'll be, a couple hundred pages. So it's not going to be like a Lord of the Rings kind of thing, but it's going to be something that you're going to want to read through. And it's part of this dream I have.
That's cool. I love that. I was going to ask, because I know this is your first book, right? Like your first comic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what has the process been like for you of like relaying what you've got? Because you've spent 20 years building and crafting this thing. What's it then look like for you to relay that with your artist, and then like figure out how the two of you like meet in the middle for what
Mm.
ends up being the pages? Because I know just in talking to any writer ever, and you know, the first time you talk with an artist and then you get like, here's my story, here's the idea, here's the feel, here's all the stuff, now here's like here's my scripts, and you start sending them all your scripts, and then they send back those first couple pages. You're like, that's totally different than what I was expecting. And sometimes it's totally better, and sometimes it's like, we need some edits. But like, what was that whole process like for you?
So, and I very much respect all my artists. You know, I'll give them an idea. Like, this is what I want. Some of them are like, "Can you give me a basic drawing?"
Mm.
And I'm like, "Yes."
Do you like stick figures?
I'm a little bit better than that, just
Okay.
a little bit, but not much. And so I'll give them a basic idea. One of my big baddies that is in issue 1, her name's Lucy Morningstar, and it's the physical incarnate of Satan. Um,
Mm.
and so I told my artist, I'm like, I kind of want her to look like Sarah Palin, Lauren Boebert, kind of like that. And so he's like, really? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I need this and this and this. Or like with my character Golem, when I told him I have a character Golem, he very much made it originally looking like the Lord of the Rings Golem. I'm like, not not so much.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a little bit more of like a crystallized look, a little bit more, you know, not so meaty and scary like that. And so that one was more of a compromise. Like
Mm.
he couldn't get it just perfect, but it's what I went with. One of the first character artists I came across, he did my co-host team, and some of his artwork was dead on. Like, oh my goodness, when I say I want a zombie werewolf, like this thing is just vicious.
Yeah.
Um, it's a totally different feel than how Gilbert Monsanto did his, and I love Gilbert's. I can't wait for my second campaign and start getting some of these character cards out there because they are just so good. The coloring, the artwork, um, and what I tend to find is everybody I reach out to, they really grab a hold of like one of these characters.
Mm.
And Joe, one of his favorite that's being used in Biblical Proportions 3 and in a couple other of his projects, is a character named the Crusader. And basically a giant crusade type knight, but his armor is kind of like a living symbiote. His sword is a tank cannon with blades. His shield stands, you know, 6 foot tall. He is a beast of a character, and Joe just loves him. He's been using him in a lot of his projects. Um, you know, another one, Luke. He really fell in love with the Skinwalker. You
Mm.
know, murdered his whole family, and to gain this power, and he can change into different beasts depending on which headdress he puts on. And you know, my kids, they really love Durga. She's fashionable. She's cool. You know, she's got the arms and she's a fighter.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of falls in love with a different one, and um, you know, I love that. I want them to pick their favorite and say, "Hey, that's the one I really identify with."
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there's always, when like X-Men 97 was just taking over social media because it was so good. Um, Everybody that I like ended up talking to in the comments or whatever about different things, or jumping in the comments on other people's posts, like, what character for you is the one that's standing out that, you know, you're resonating with? And it always seemed like there weren't you could scroll through the comments and it wasn't just one character every time. It was like, well, I like this person for this reason. Oh, I like this one because this thing resonates with me. And so I think that that's like a natural, thing, which is really cool and like key for good writing, is to have these different characters that can be relatable for very different people.
Right. And I think that's, even growing up in the 80s, what really made a lot of the cartoons back then so sticky is like G.I. Joe. There's so many characters, but each character could do its own piece.
Yeah.
There's 50 characters, and each one, you take Snake Eyes, he could do his own show. You do Shipwreck, he does his own show. You can do Duke, he does his own show. All these characters are so deep that you really identified with one. For me, it was Bazooka and Crazy Legs. He was was it Crazy Legs? I think he was the kind of martial art guy.
Okay.
Probably culturally inappropriate at the moment. They kind of took some stereotypical stuff with him.
Yeah.
But again, those guys were my favorite. And every time we as kids played G.I. Joe, who are you going to be? I want to be Bazooka. That's my character.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my goal. Like, I want characters that all have depth, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And also not to be that, like, okay, here's another Superman.
Right.
Here's another Batman. Here's another Spider-Man. Here's another Hulk. These characters have their own backgrounds and stories, and isn't just a retread of what we've already seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so difficult, it seems, when you look at like mainstream media stuff, because it just feels like, I know that, like, every time you see the same tropes, and even if the character is supposed to be different, it's still like, it can't help itself but just be like a new iteration of something that's already come. So as like reading the synopsis of the book and seeing like this is a fresh take on characters that haven't been overdone, it's like, great, like that's a gauntlet to throw down. And I love that it's like, it's gotta be, because it, like, instead of just like, oh, this is another like good versus evil, okay, we know the fight, like we know that, we've heard that story. So I'm real eager to see what you've come up with and what the story is. So what can people expect with this first issue?
Man, it's pretty straightforward, especially with the images that I show. You see spiritual warfare, angels and demons fighting it out. You see the main character there at the end with his wings ripped off and all his guys defeated. I show you the last page.
Yeah. So
it's, how do we get there? Generally, the way the rest of my stories are going to be, I want it to be more realistic. Like, in today, there's nobody who wakes up and says, "Ooh, what evil thing shall I do today?" And
right.
Everybody, from dictators to whatever, they all have their idea of what would be a perfect world, what would be a good world, and they're doing it. They're trying to make it, but in their own sense. Yeah. So they don't. Again, nobody wakes up and says, "Okay, how can it be evil today? I'm supposed to be a villain." The main characters, except I will say, I mean, again, I got Satan in there, and
pretty sure he's wake up and how evil can I be today?
Yeah, but the rest of the characters, heroes and villains, they don't see themselves as heroes and villains, and you'll find out some heroes are villains and some villains are heroes. It's gonna be pretty different than what we've seen in the past. Cool. I hope.
Right. Right. That's the goal, right? So I know, so with the book being in production, like how I might have missed it. How far along in the production process are you with the first issue?
So I have 4 pages absolutely complete. They are minus lettering. I've got them sketched, inked, colored. I have 3 more that have been sketched and inked. The storylines are done through issue 4. So I have 24 pages that still need to be sketched, inked, colored, and lettered. Issue 2, I've got 3 pages that are, again, the sketched, inked, and colored. Of course, my covers are done. I've got a couple other things going. But yeah, there's about 24 pages that need to be completed. My artist can bust that out in just a few weeks.
That's cool.
With amazing precision.
It's wild. So I'm also not artistically inclined. And so anytime I hear about like, oh yeah, they can, we're just going to finish the last 20 pages in, it should probably take them like 3 weeks, maybe. I'm like, that's a page a day. Are you insane? How do you have that ability to do? Like, I'm just in awe of anybody.
Some of my artists, I'd give them a page, and some people I was testing out, and it'd be 2 weeks for a page to get done. And I'm like, I've got 27 pages, 28 pages to get completed. And if you're going on 2 weeks a page,
yeah,
I'm not getting this done until 2027. And I already got to say, one of my characters is a technocrat, and so he has all this cool technology, but as it's already taken 3 years, some of the things that I've been working on, Google overheard me, I guess. It's listening, and it's like, that's a good idea. Let's do that. I think that'll do well.
Yeah.
It's like crap. So I gotta be like, quick on this. So, my advanced technologies aren't, CD-ROMs and beta discs.
Right. Yeah, they've got a advanced 8-track player.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. Just going all out with all the latest technology of the 70s.
Really pushing the technological edge. I like that a lot. So, okay, so you've got the campaign, you've got the rewards. We've got, so let me see, because I'm totally going to cheat. We've got the physical. I love the chibi cover that you've got of the guardian angel on the cover. Like, that's probably the one that I'm going to grab. And then you've got that holofoil color drawing you in. How does that tier work? Because I've seen it in a couple of campaigns, and it always seems like it's a little different. So what's the plan with like drawing folks in that want to join in at that tier?
So not only do they get a physical and digital copy, yes, but I will get, ask them for several, shots, profile, front, and I'm going to give that to my artist. And there's certain places in my comic that I have, like my wife's like, Dan, if I'm not drawn into this comic, you're going to sleep on the couch for a long time. I'm like, okay, baby, you are in this. You're my biggest supporter anyway, so that's no brainer.
Right.
So yeah, there's going to be several places within the comics and I had to make the decision, and it's just a personal decision. Some of them were like, well, will I be an angel or a demon? And I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't do that. There's other characters, other places I can put you in there. And even though some of my friends were like, well, I really want to be in there. And I'm like, nah, I just can't do it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, whether it's a mural on the wall or these guys are going to be fighting for mayor of the city. Or maybe they're one of the ones that are getting snatched up. And yeah, I won't give out too much of the details on that. But yeah, I've got so far, I've got 2 people who said yes off my launch yesterday.
That's awesome.
That's not my wife. not not my wife gets a freebie. Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll be in there no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again, I want to have that image of who they are. They can send me that image, and do the profile, do the front, and then I'll be able to use that to put in. And going to try to give them a line, um, something like, and maybe in the bottom of the page, contributor, Joe Smith,
Yeah.
you know, and so that they know that yes, this is them, this is what they paid for, and not just somebody who kind of generically looks like them, but pretty
Yeah.
good representation that this is the donor that paid that big buck to get in there.
Yeah. That's cool. I always think like it would be so neat to, I've only been able to like actually afford it once. And it's like a future issue. So it's still like the campaign just wrapped. It's from a post punk that was here on the show. And he was like, hey man, I can get you into the book. I was like, yeah. I want that for sure. So, but yeah, I just think that's like that's such a cool thing to offer. Because like what comic fan doesn't want to see themselves in a book,
in a comic book, right?
Like, yeah, that's the like top tier. That's the ideal, like living your best life thing. It's like
some of my favorites. Marvel does it all the time with their creators. They sneak a Stan Lee in here. They put a so and so in here, and it's like, yeah, hey, I know that person. Yeah, that's so cool. I wish I was in this. So, if they're paying that to get in there, not only are they supporting this comic to go forward, but then again, they're immortalized and unique. Who doesn't want to be a comic book character?
Right. That's who doesn't. So
give me superpowers. Well, let's go.
Right. I'll even be happy to be the shocked person, like in a storefront that just got smashed in by the protagonist and antagonist. Like just oh no, they're crashing into my world. So one of the things that you mentioned, you've got 13 issues planned, and you said you have 4 of those issues like fully written.
Correct.
So what's the plan, like timeline wise? Are you looking to just like as soon as issue 1 is done, funded, production's done, you get the rewards out, you're going to launch issue 2? Or is that going to be like, have you planned for that yet?
As best I can. Again, right now I'm doing pretty well on my Kickstarter. I've got 500 of 3,000. So a sixth of it in one day, less than 24, or in 24 hours, a sixth of it. So I got 30 days to go. I already know several people that are like, yep, I got to sign up on Kickstarter.
Yep.
And I've got some other interviews, not going to be as good as this one, of course.
Obviously.
But I've got some other, I'm a sixth of the way there. Once I get this completed, the money's just going to go right back into issue 2. So getting more pages done. And I plan on getting it done like that. I wish I could say, I'm going to get 1 out a month. As a kid, I'm waiting for Amazing Spider-Man once a month, right?
Yeah.
On Tuesdays, I'm there at the comic book store like, oh, is it out yet? But in today's market, even Marvel, DC, Image, all the big guys, they do their best to try to get it out in a month, or every other month. So I'm just planning on taking the money I make, investing it right back into the next comic. Hopefully at that point, people are going to be like, yes, I'm just wanting to see this next. What's happening next? Yeah. What's Dan introducing next? What's Chevy and Josh? What's their plans on Team Coast? What's going to happen? Who's going to die? And again, I really want that story to push it out, that next comic, that next storyline.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I do think the like the every other or like every 3 months, like, you know, like one a quarter, that does feel much more realistic. Given that, you know, are your artists based here in the States?
So that's a great question. Um, my artist is actually he is in the Philippines.
Okay.
Um, so he does again incredible work, and I want to be able to support more of our U.S. artists, but it's just so hard when they're charging, and not for a bad reason. I mean, they gotta eat. It's America. It just costs a lot to live. So when they're charging 150, $300, whatever for a page, and I can get just exceptional work with a guy I really trust that I've used over and over and over.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going with this guy because at the end, if I can get out this story for like this, my goal is three grand. That 3 grand is not just writing. Just the artist, someone who's drawing, another person who's coloring, a letterer, someone's doing the cover page, distribution. I also have, that includes the rewards.
Yeah.
So I've invested a lot of my own that any of us independent guys will know. It's you're probably not going to make it back.
Right.
That's okay. Again, I have this calling to get this out. Like, if I don't, it's gonna drive me nuts. I have to. I'm also not gonna put my house up for
Sure.
it.
Right.
So, but again, we've invested a lot as seed, and I just want to see where this is gonna take us.
That's cool. So are you pretty open-handed then with like what this could turn into? Like are you like if this first Kickstarter just completely went gangbusters and because of this episode you got 1,000 backers and launched this story to the moon and you're able to jump forward and get the next four out by summer of 2025, like would you be looking to expand it into like getting the novella done but then also like trying to option it for some sort of like TV or movie thing or like pitching it to like a different publisher to get even wider distribution, or are you like, no, it's StarCross,
I
where we
love
are?
StarCross. I wouldn't be here without StarCross, without Joe Spicer and the team. Um, I it's one of those things that if I do well, they're going to do well. We're all going to do well. And if this really took off, like I would love to go. Those first 13 issues are just the first story arc.
Mm.
There's expansions going over different ways with different characters. I have other characters that are not a part of this story that I would love to be able to keep going with. My kids are like, when's that character? When's he coming out? When is he gonna have his own comic book? And I'm like, not right now. I got let me get this number one out first.
Right.
Even Joe, I'm like, well, so this character, he does this, and he came from this place, and he's like, whoa. You keep getting bogged down with all these side things. We don't even have issue one out. Let's focus on this first one.
Yeah.
Get this out, and then once this becomes what it needs to become, then let's go ahead and start these other characters and these other storylines. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Got it.
Because I can rabbit trail all day.
Yeah, especially once you get like I've found that once I get into a creative mindset where I'm writing or chasing down, like I'll have very vivid dreams that I wake up remembering. And
Oh
so
yes.
here recently I've gotten smart and started like capturing as much as I can remember about it. in just like the speech to text, because my thumbs can't move fast enough to keep up with what my brain is remembering. And so if I revisit those notes and I'm like, oh, this could tie in with this and this could be this, and like once I get going, it's hard to then slow down and be like, well, hang on, like I don't even know where this lives yet or anything. Like, do you have that similar experience where you've got very specific, like this is a scene, but it can't happen until like the 9th issue because it just doesn't
Yes.
until then?
Yes. And I have one in particular. It's going to be issue 5, and
we can give very vague.
Okay, so again, I don't care. It's such a story in my head that the team is going to meet an informant in the back of a very questionable establishment up front. It's very, very like friendly and stuff, but the further you go back into this place, the more just wrong and awful. And finally, and again, even though this isn't for kids, even then I don't want to get too graphic in it. But at the end, as they're about to meet with the informant, and the back door opens and they bring in a couple kids and they're yelling for their mom. And at that point, the main character does his thing, and he starts doing what he's doing, and Chevy, Sharada Adan, the other main character, is like, everybody out, start grabbing people, and the people who are in there doing the really bad stuff are blinded and they're clawing at the walls until there's blood all over it, but they can't see, and they're getting as many people as they can. They're rushing out of the building, and the last person out of the building is Josh, and he's holding this girl who's unconscious, and he sets her on the ground, and behind him there is just a beam of power that just boom, 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 and everything that was there is just gone, like perfectly gone. Just there's nothing left. And he's holding this lady, this young woman, and they're like, okay, you can fix her, you can bring her back, you can do it, we've seen you do it before. And he's like, no, there's just some healing that can't happen on this side of heaven. And again, it's this scene that for the last few years has been like, I want to see this play out. I want to see the intensity of the moment. Again, I don't want to give so much of that away. There's ramifications for what happens, and so there's just different things that I see going forward, as some of the characters make it and some of them don't. Yeah, well, every day I dream of these things, and I'm like, I can't wait to see this done.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that I'm not the only one that happens to. Part of that was just a validation fishing. That's all that was.
Yes, it's a thing. Yes, 100%.
Because yeah, I'll have like, that's a highly specific, not even just like a flash, like a single panel. That's a several page developing scene that you've got already materialized, that it's just a matter of getting the story there, getting the series there, getting the arc there, to then be able to get it onto paper.
Yes.
So yeah, I know the feeling, and I have talked with enough writers that it's like, they have that similar, like, I just have this thing and I need to get to the point where I can tell it, but I can't just start there. Like, I would love to just, here's this thing, but it has to make sense. And so like, we got to build the story and context around it and lead to it and all these things. And so I just think it's just fascinating to me how different creators have ideas and like build to them and how they piece things together, because it's always different. But then we always end up with just really awesome comics. So
Yeah. Well, even then, if you have a good team, some of the stuff I've like pitched to Joe and the guys, and they're like, "How does that work? Like, can that work? That doesn't actually work." And I'm like, you know what? You're 100% right. That's not going to work. So let's fix it. Let's change this up a little bit. How does this? But I will say that has never been on any of the big ideas. That's been more of like a character. Like, is this gonna is my main character Joshua? Like, he doesn't have a name. That's kind of the running thing. Is they're trying to find a name for him. But at first he was going to be like a 14-year-old kid. But then, what was a 14-year-old kid doing in a place like that? That's not going to happen. He's got to be older.
yeah.
So some of my characters again have had to change, and some of the guys when I've reached out to, my daughter walked in. She wanted to hear. She said hi to everyone. But some of the people have said, okay, how is this going to work? You know, this Navajo guy. I don't want to seem stereotypical. I don't want to be like, oh, well, he's an Indian. You know, he's Native American Navajo tribe. You know, his name's not like Standing Bear. You know, like, what is this really going to look like? And so the people that I've reached out to for research, you know, they have given me a lot of background. I'm like, oh, you know what? Thank you, because I would have seemed like a real jerk to just put that together based on my own white American typical guy. You know, everybody else in the world is just a savage or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, without those people, without my friends from all over, it would have been just a train wreck.
That's cool. I love the communal aspect that you're talking towards. Is another like very common reoccurring thing, and every time it comes up, I love that it comes up, because we're only ever better. It's that like iron sharpens iron thing. Like, we're only ever better when we're working with other people. And I never want to be the smartest person in the room, because I never want to feel like I can't learn something from anybody else around me, because everybody's got different experiences and everybody has different, you know, perspectives and backgrounds and knowledge bases and like hyper focused things that they learned everything about.
Mm-hmm.
And I like just being open to that, I think is really cool. And I love hearing that, you know, the community that you've got around you through the StarCross comics are like making you a better creator. They're like, you're learning from them, they're learning from you, all of those things, and everything at the end of the day is leading to, let's make the best possible book we can. Like, that's great. I love that a lot. So we got to get music in here too, because what's a long box punk if I don't talk about half of my name? So like, what kind of music do you find is inspiring or influential to you, both like just personally, or like even has there been music that has inspired some of the stuff that's being included with Stained Glass?
Oh, yes. So, one of my absolute favorite bands is a band called War of Ages. It's a metal band with Face Down Records. And so I reached out to them for my promo video. I'm like, hey, your music has been my anthem. Can I please use it? And I reached out to them and got no answer. And then I was like, okay, well, who else can I reach out to? So I reached out to the main singer's brother, and he's like, yes, that's fine. You can use our music, but I'm no longer in the band. I'm like, I can't use that, I don't think.
Helpful.
So, right. So then I reached out to the record label, and I'm like, hey, Yeah, this is so good. I really love your stuff. Just for promotional work, can I use a song from one of their albums? And she's like, absolutely. I'm like, hey, just I will let you guys choose the song. And she goes, you know what? You have free range. So we hope that you pick something from from the most recent album, Dominus, and it's I put it along with it's an artist that I had who took my existing pages and put motion to it.
Oh, cool.
And so it's so good. It's so good. I just keep listening to it over and over. So yes, music is definitely a theme for me. Big bands like again War of Ages, Becoming the Archetype, Wolves at the Gate, um, For Today, Project 86. Um, I like some of the harder stuff, and you'll either have that or inspirational. Like there's no in between. It's either or and you're just like, okay, those are the two things that influence this. There's and actually the reason why I wanted so much to partner with music is because I feel like it's the same audience. And there's a radio station out of Ohio called RadioU, and I'm giving them a shout out right now. They
Yeah.
play everything from metal to EDM to hip hop to rock to whatever. So you'll hear some of those bands that I named, as well as like 21 Pilots, NF,
Yep.
and you're just like, yes, this is what I need. This is the kind of stuff that really gets me going. And they gave me permission as well to use them in my comics. And I plan on,
That's
if you see Radio U somewhere in my comic book, it's because yeah,
That's so
so
cool. Like, man, that's such a small world. Like I used to work, I live in Ohio. Radio U's footprint is anytime I go to Columbus for the Blue Jackets games, I get about 40 minutes into my drive and I can pick up Radio U and listen to them all the way in because they're based just south of Columbus. But they have an app because we're just gushing on Radio U and how great they are. They have an app that you can download and listen to it anywhere. So like you don't have to. Once I figured that out, I was like, what am I doing? Only listening to them when I go to Columbus. I can listen to them all the time. But I met a lot of them. I used to work at our local theme park, and we used to have a 3-day festival called Spirit Song. And Radio U was one of the big sponsors of that. And so when I was working like hospitality and backstage for that, I got to meet a lot of the people that were there, and it was just like, they were so cool. Like we just sat and we're talking and they're like, oh shoot, we got to get back to our booth. I'm like, sorry. But they were just so nice, and like talking to them. And then, you know, every year that they would come back, because I worked that event for like 4 or 5 years in a row. And so every year it was at least the same guy that was coming back. And by the second year, he was like, we talked last year, didn't we? I'm like, how in the world do you remember one person out of the like, you know, 17,000 that are coming in and out of this event over the weekend that you remember me? Like, okay, that's all right. That's super cool. So yeah, nothing but love for Radio U. I love that is the station that you brought up. My wife loves Red.
oh yeah.
And I had never experienced or known about them until we got married, and we went and saw them and Demon Hunter, and we saw both of them. And so before the show, Demon Hunter was doing a photo op, and so I was like, well, we're here and like they're just doing it for free. Let's go get a picture with them. And so we're like I'm shaking hands. I have no idea who these dudes are. And the one guy was like, you're here for her, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, is it that obvious? He was like, yeah, it's cool. I was like, this is her stuff. Like she came to this same venue when I wanted to come see Switchfoot, and like now I'm coming with her, and I'm sorry. And he was like, no, it's great. Like you're a new person that we get to introduce our music to. Like that's awesome. Yeah. And way to be a good husband for your wife. I was like,
Right?
that's great. All right. Yeah, I'm taking that.
Yeah, brownie points. I meant to do that. Yeah.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
Well, and I'm currently living in Springfield, Missouri, but prior to this, I was living in Middle Tennessee, just about 30 minutes south of Nashville,
Okay.
and the music was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a bank, and my boss, the branch manager, he was a gun for hire. He played for a band called Spoken, and he traveled with them overseas. And then in that area, like I'd have like Matty Mullins from Memphis Mayfire.
Yeah.
He was coming in like, Matty, what's up? And he's like, hey, Dan, it's good to see you, bro. And, you know, people like Seventh Day Slumber. I never met him, but Brian Head Welch from Korn and Love and Death.
Yeah.
He's right there as well. He was just lived in that same area. And, you know, I got to see all these people. And another guy I went to church with, he also played for Spoken. Just, it's like, okay, this is my scene, and it's all right here.
Yeah.
You know, I can just walk into my grocery store and be like, hey, what's up? And, you know, it's like, I love it, you know, and growing up, like, I was into music all the time. I was a radio DJ for a short time in college, and I wasn't supposed to be. The guy who was supposed to be the DJ kind of gave it up, and he's like, hey, you want to do this? And I'm like, Saturday night, 10 p.m. till Sunday at 2 a.m., let's do this thing. And so, you know, it's a good thing the FCC didn't listen to me because I never asked permission for what music I played.
That's awesome.
And I did train on some boards at a local radio station in Nashville. You know, when it was all before it went digital. Mm-hmm. So the brand new technology stuff from the 1990s, you know, putting in carts and recording carts.
Yeah.
And doing everything live without just pushing buttons and just something pre-recorded. So, you know, again, music was my thing.
That's cool. And now here you are, and you're making comics, and it never, like, I love the analogy of the independent comic scene and like the independent music scene and how their Venn diagrams really do overlap in the middle.
So much.
And it's just like the commonalities that are there. The community comes in, the like willingness to help each other. Cause like you mentioned, when one boat rises, like all of the boats rise. It's not that the other ones are sinking. So just the willingness to lend a hand is never overstated. So yeah, I love that. I also, the last official written down question I have is the picture that you've got on your Kickstarter is with you and your family at Disney. What's your favorite ride at Disney?
Oh. So that was this past January or March. That was March.
Okay.
You know what? I would say the Tron Cycle was probably my favorite because my youngest daughter, who's 6, she wanted to do that ride. Like it wasn't just like, okay, there's probably other rides that are a lot better. But the fact that my 6-year-old was like, Daddy, I want to get on that ride and I want to ride it with you. I'm like, yep, that's happening. I will have to do that. I mean, my oldest daughter, Chloe, you know, we had a lot of fun with different rides, and my son Corbin, he doesn't like the real scary rides. But Cambry, my 6-year-old, she's the daredevil, right? She wants to ride the craziest ride she can. Before we went there, she made sure that we went ahead and made sure that she was tall enough.
Yeah. She
had to be tall enough for this ride. And so that was our ride, the Tron Cycle. Now, down here in Springfield, Missouri, we're not far from Branson and their Silver Dollar City. Now, you're in Ohio. I know Cedar Point's up there. And some other places, but Silver Dollar City down here in Branson is probably the most epic park I've ever been to.
Wow.
Better than Six Flags, better than Disney, better than anywhere else I've been to. So if you get a chance, come down to Branson,
Okay.
get on Time Traveler, fire in the hole. Um, oh, now I can't think of it. The absolute best is Time Traveler. They've got like 7 or 8 rides that are all like 2-3 minutes long that do crazy stuff. So it's not like you wait in line for 3 hours to ride a 30-second ride that you're like,
That was
really?
it. We're done.
That was it. I spent 3 hours of my life for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, come down Silver Dollar City, check out some incredible rides. I think you'll like it.
I love that. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So part of why I worked at our theme park is because I grew up there. Like every year we had the passes and did the whole thing, and some family helped with some of the math on the Beast, which is the last time I checked, the longest wooden roller coaster in the nation. And that was the first roller coaster that I rode. And we did the Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols thing where we crushed cans that we had, put them in my shoe because I wasn't tall enough. And so I walked up to the measuring stick, and with the cans, I was just tall enough to get on the ride. And I got off of the ride. There's a double helix at the end. And I was so small that I was just shaking around, and it's an old wooden coaster. Now I'm like, I love getting shaken around and beaten up by the Beast. But at the time, I just wanted to ride a fun ride. And I came off, my ear was bleeding because I hit the middle support during those double helix. And so we're walking to like the frozen ice stand, and my dad was like, I need to get this ice for, like, he's bleeding. He got hit. And so he shoves this huge thing of ice on my head, and I was like, can we ride it again? It was the best. I was hooked. It's still my favorite ride of all time. So yeah, I will definitely, I've got Silver Dollar City written down in Branson, Missouri as the place to go for all of the rides. Now, like I mentioned, that's the end of my official questions, but that's not the end for you. I have 2 more things. First, I like to take a screenshot during the interview, and then I use that as the thumbnail for YouTube. So I'm going to get my keyboard shortcut here. And that's mainly, I might be overthinking it, but that's mainly an easy thing for me to do. Because then I already have the YouTube thumbnail saved. I don't have to hunt through an episode. So on the count of 3, you can pose however you want to pose. I don't care. And we will do the thing. And so if you, get the angle, get all this stuff. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Great. Now the last thing is, in the spirit of DIY and being indie creators, a large part of why I love doing this show is because I get to hear the unique voices of all the creators that I have on my show. So I'm going to stop talking. The floor is going to be yours, and you can share anything that you want to share. It can be about your book. It can be about your past. It can be about why Silver Dollar City has the best theme park in the nation. The content of it is total free reign. I just want to make sure that I can do anything that I can to help boost your voice. So if there's anything that you want anybody that's watching now or after the fact or listening on any of the podcasting platforms that the show is available on, here's your chance to speak directly to any of them.
Man, thank you. That's awesome. I will say this. Throughout this journey of being able to get Stained Glass Comics going, my greatest supporter has been my wife. Sarah has helped me, given me ideas. She has supported in so many ways. As I'm putting out $100 here and $100 here, and she's been my absolute angel in all of this. But also my kids, like my oldest daughter is one of the most creative people I've met in my life. And she did like a 3D pen. She used it to create all of my characters. and she's creating her own chibis that she wants me to use in upcoming Kickstarters or whatever for my fans. Um, and my son, every night he prays, he's like, and help daddy's comic. And it's just like, you know what? I've got the greatest fan support I can imagine. But if you as a creator, if this is something that keeps you up at night, if these stories keep coming to you and you don't know what to do with them, write them down, pursue them, find people who can help you with this. It's an investment. Don't expect to go in there and be like, yeah, I want to jump in. I'll do this for free. That's not going to happen. But you will find people who'll be like, wow, I love your dream. I love your idea. Let's put this together, and they'll partner with you, and they'll invest just as much as well, maybe not as much as you, but they're going to invest in it. Thankfully, I've got a guy like Joe Spicer on my side who, in every step of this, whether I need artwork, I need somebody to help me distribute this, I need help with my storylines. How do I panel? How do I do? I've got amazing friends. People who try to do it on their own, they'll get burned out pretty quick. But if that story keeps you up at night and you sit there dreaming about this, don't go in for just the cheap. There's anybody can get a comic out there just by showing a little skin or making it just super out there. Don't be just gimmicky. Everyone's got their thing, but put it together, and I'll tell you, God will take you on places you've never gone before. If He's giving you that dream, He's giving you that vision, you pursue it. So, and again, I've got other people who are supporting. My parents have supported this dream so many ways. They're a large part of my Kickstarter right now as well. But guys, just if that's you, you're an independent creator, you want to see your vision, pursue it, keep it going, and don't water it down. It's you, it's your dream, it's your vision. That's really all I have for you. Again, Chris, dude, music, comics, these are my people. You guys are my people.
Perfect. And you're our people too, Dan.
Yes.
It's a mutual love. So I love that message so freaking much. I can't do anything to top it. So I think we're just going to end it there. Hang tight. I got some more logistics for you after the end. But thank you so much, Dan, for hanging out with me. Stained Glass #1 is live on Kickstarter right now. It is happening. It is funding. And it has 28 days to go as of the date of this. I don't know what that math is very quickly. So like mid-October ish.
Yep.
Great. Nailed it. Good stuff. Thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate you. But that's going to be it for this episode. So go do what's good for you, punks, and go read and make some indie comics. That's it for this episode. We are out of here.